You're listening to the first and longest running female hosted hunting podcast. Welcome to the HuntFishTravel podcast, helping you navigate your trip of a lifetime. And now, here's your hostess, Carrie Zilka.
Welcome to the HuntFishTravel podcast. I am your hostess, Carrie Zilka. This episode, I've got Mia Anstine. You might remember her from the Field and Stream magazine. She was on the cover this year. I still love it. I love to brag that she's my friend because I think that's amazing. It's so cool. She shares a little bit about her hunt over there in Russia. Russian bear hunt. Who gets to go to Russia to go to bear hunt? Oh my gosh. We recorded the interview while I was visiting her in Colorado in September during our elk hunt, which will be another episode later on down the line. But meanwhile, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoy what I've got in store for 2018. I'm in Colorado during this interview. This is pretty exciting. And we're here with Mia Anstine. You might remember her from several episodes. Just go back and find them. Because we did one about the elk hunt, and now we're here elk hunting in Colorado. But we're not going to talk about elk hunting. We're going to talk about bear hunting in Russia. Because who goes bear hunting in Russia? Mia does. That's who.
And because Carrie had bear hunting on her podcast in the past.
I know. It's like on my bucket list. I'm like, oh my gosh. So Mia, welcome back to the show. So first off, I know there's paperwork, and I remember you texting me about, or no, I think I talked to you about the paperwork that you had to fill out.
Yes.
Talk to me about like pre-trip stuff, all the things you had to go through, even just pre-trip before you even got there.
Right. That's something that you generally don't think about is the paperwork you have to do to get to another country. But Beretta, USA, and Sako took me over there to Russia. And when I got the invitation, it was 2 months before the trip. So that's not a lot of time to do your paperwork. And as you know, since you're here, I live in a very small area, very small town. There aren't embassies and such here. So trying to figure out how to get a visa was a challenge, which I think was partly how I had contacted you, was like, do you know how to do this? And my friend Lanny Barnes lives near me here in Durango, and she's been to Russia with the Olympics. So I asked her, and since it was an Olympic thing, the committees had helped her get hers. So it was very much different to have to get this on my own, and I had to get it in order to go. And it ends up, you can contact several embassies. I think there's 6 or 7 in the United States. And since mine was such short notice, I had to actually overnight my actual passport, which was a bit scary.
You had to like mail it?
I had to mail it to them. So that was a bit scary because even if that got lost, I couldn't, because the trip actually, let me back up a little bit, was going to be to Finland, where Sako Rifles is headquartered, where their plants are, and then we were going to travel to Russia. So if I lost my passport in this process, I wouldn't even get to go to Finland. Yeah. I was really screwed. And actually, I didn't tell a lot of my friends because I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want people to get excited, and then I'd be like, oh, sorry, I didn't get my visa, so I'm really not going. Right. The big letdown. Yeah. So in overnighting it probably cost a total of about $700 to get the visa, because I actually had to pay the Russians to expedite the whole process. Normally it takes weeks, and I needed it in a matter of days, and it all came through. They actually asked me, what day are you flying out, and we'll make sure you get it back by then, which
oh my God. So go ahead and book your flights and everything, and we'll hopefully get it to you, and hopefully the mail will cooperate.
Exactly. So Beretta had booked all these flights and everything, and I told them, I'm like, well, I don't have it back yet. Up until the Friday before I was leaving, I wasn't sure if it would be back in time. Right. And I actually sat down in our front little house and watched for the UPS truck when the date was supposed to come, and it was just sweating it out. I was like, oh, please show up, and it did. So that's a process. If you're planning to go to any other country, but especially like Russia, try to plan a year in advance. Even it costs more the shorter term you have. They're going to charge you more for processing fees and time. And really, if I had 6 months or a year in advance, it would have been no big deal, and it would have been maybe $200 or something. Yeah.
So what exactly, the trip was a media event, or what was the purpose of the event itself?
The event actually was a media event put on by Saco, and Beretta owns Saco. So they were the ones who took myself and 3 other riders over, and we went to tour the Saco plant and their ammunition plant. They also make Tikka rifles. We got to see how those are made. And then they wanted us to hunt with their rifles and ammunition. And so that's kind of the gist of the whole hunt, was to get us out there using their guns and real life scenario hunting.
Did they, like, why bear of all animals? Just
in the area, really in Finland, we could have hunted bear and moose, but our chances were a little less likely. And so that's why Saco arranged for us to go over to Lake Pajärvi Resort in a wilderness area. Actually, it's not really a resort, but we went over there because our chances were higher at actually getting an animal. And they really wanted, for a rider's event and for a story, you really want the finale to be, you know, an animal down. Mm-hmm. And that's why they had arranged it that way.
Okay. So you got your visa. You're about to get on the plane. How long of a flight was it?
Oh, gosh. I flew from Colorado. I went to Dallas. And then from Dallas, I flew to Paris. And Paris to Helsinki. And I want to say, I don't remember for sure, I think it was 23 hours I was traveling.
That's so many hours.
So the flight from Dallas to Paris was at night. So it wasn't too bad because I actually slept a lot on that flight. And so, yeah, it was okay. You never sleep super well on a flight, but it wasn't too bad.
You're right. Yeah.
The flight back, on the other hand, that was during the day, and I already was jet lagged from the travel, and that was a little more rough.
How many days were you going to be there?
The whole trip was a 9-day trip from the time I left to the time I got back to my house.
Man, you burned like 2 days each way almost.
Yes.
Just with time changes and everything and travel.
Yeah. So there was that travel, and then I spent 2 days in Helsinki and then 3 days in Russia, and the other days were traveling. So.
That's crazy. Wow.
4 days of travel.
So you land in Helsinki, and they come and pick you up, obviously. And tell me about that first day. Like, what were your initial thoughts of Finland?
Finland was a great city. Where we stayed was right down on the waterfront, and they held the Olympics there. I don't remember what year it is. You'd have to look it up. But they held the Olympics there, so the city's been developed to host, millions of people. And they actually, on the waterfront, there's Ferris wheels and a very touristy waterfront, which was really neat. I wish that I had gotten more time to kind of tour around there.
Yeah.
But as you said, like my first day, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time to tour around Helsinki. I landed about 3 in the afternoon, I believe. I had a couple of hours to rest once I got to the hotel. Then we had to go to dinner, and we met everybody from Saco and met the other riders and everything. And we actually went to a traditional Lappian restaurant, and they served you like on not metal, but wood platters and stuff. And we ate reindeer and some fish and stuff like that. But the reindeer, of course, all of us Americans, all 4 riders, we were just like, wow, reindeer. And we didn't know at the time in Finland, it's like beef. They actually raise reindeer like we do our cattle, like the reindeer ear tagged. And so
yeah.
It was pretty exciting for us. We had reindeer heart, liver, we had a bunch of smoked different flavors, different ways of preparing everything, and all of it was just delicious. It was awesome.
That's cool.
So good. So there was that, and then after all our networking and dinner and introducing everybody, I don't think we got back to the room till 11 or 12 at night, and then had to be up and ready to meet the bus at 7 in the morning. And of course, we're still on American time, still jet lagged, so a couple hours of sleep, which really wasn't sleep because I was thinking it's morning time. My body thought it was morning. Met the bus in the morning to go tour the Saco plant, and then we had to go take our hunting tests because we had to pass a test, an actual shooting test, before we could go hunt.
And does that test, it was good in Finland and Russia?
Yes.
Or just like a European test?
Yeah.
What if you had failed it?
I'm not sure. None of us failed, so I don't know. I wouldn't want to know what would have happened.
Right?
That would have been sure disappointment, right? But the test, I don't think I've ever told you about the test. So after we toured the plant, and the actual Saco plant, it actually was where they built rifles for their military during the First World War. And part of the plant is built into the mountain where they used to like store and hide their rifles and ammunition and when Russia was trying to invade Finland and stuff like that. So it was super neat, historic building and facility. But we had our tour, and then we headed out to the shooting range. And I should just give you a list of all the food later, because we ate pheasant stew while we were there at the range for lunch, and it was just outstanding. But to take the test, our first test was to shoot a brown bear target at 100 meters. We were able to do that seated. That was no big deal, seated with a good rest and everything. And that's as though you're hunting from a stand is the idea.
Okay.
So that's how they hunt in Russia, is over baits from a stand. And that one I passed. Then the next test was a test at a moving moose target who was running at 30 kilometers per hour, and you are 100 meters away. So, and you're standing, freestanding, no rest. So this is to simulate the moose hunt, which I'll tell you more about a little later. But one of the gentlemen from Saco, he used to actually shoot for their rifle team, so he gave me some pointers of how to actually hold and stand, and I passed that as well. I was pretty proud of myself this red light would go and this moose would shoot across the thing, and you'd hit it, and these other lights would go off that you actually hit the target. So
did anybody video this stuff?
I have videos on my YouTube.
Okay.
If you look up Mia Anstine and look up Saco, and there's stuff about the tour. There's a little bit about that, of the plant. And then the day of the hunting test, there's video of this moose zipping across and stuff.
I'll totally link that in the show notes, because now I want to go see.
So, I'm not a professional videographer, so it's not fancy, but you kind of will get the idea of the whole test. I don't have video of myself. I have videos of the other guys.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So...
were those just the two things that you had to do?
Yeah, that was a test. After the test, they actually assigned us rifles and tagged them, and we put them in hard cases for travel for our trip, which the following morning we would head from Helsinki to Kuusamo, Finland. And from Kuusamo, we would be driving across the border into Russia.
Okay. So So before we move into Russia, what would be your favorite thing about Finland, just in general, not even just, and I mean, aside from, obviously you're there to visit the facility and everything, but other than that, what would be your favorite thing about Finland? We're going to pause for a moment.
Okay. Is it still going?
Yep.
So it's perfect timing to ask what is the favorite thing, because actually that evening, after we all passed our hunting tests, we all loaded up in vans and headed up to these historic cabins that used to be the president of Finland's cabin where he lived, but now it's kind of like a guest home on a lake. And this cabin actually, as Russia took over Finland, the Finnish military actually dismantled the cabin and log by log relocated it to where now is Finland, and reassembled it. But it was so awesome to be in this cabin. And it's, like you said, this is my highlight of the whole trip actually, was to sit and eat dinner on the china that was from the Finnish army and their nurses, the women, their china, and actually where Hitler used to eat with the Finnish president.
That's crazy.
So it was just so amazing, and to see this fine china, and it was a formal dinner. The chef actually came out and told us etiquette of dinner and what we were allowed to do at dinner. We weren't allowed to speak about work at all, and stuff like that. There were rules of the table. Once dinner started, you were not allowed to get up to use the restroom. You had to wait till dinner was done. And with each course of meal, there was a different drink that you had in a different glass. And he actually poured they had a lot of vodka in Finland. And when you would pour the vodka in this little glass, it actually bubbled way over the top, and he would pour it without spilling a single drop. And the whole background of this vodka and having the heaping kind of shot glass was the Finnish military back in the war. They were only allowed to have one drink. So they would fill it as full as they could without spilling. So that was really fun. And really just that whole dinner was amazing. And to learn the history of their country. And
no kidding. Just being surrounded by such incredible history, good or bad, it's a part of history that you were like almost...
Yeah.
You could just maybe feel the ghosts and stuff. And
Exactly. And actually, while we were there in Finland and in Russia, I didn't do it because there were 2 women with us in Finland, myself and the PR person for Beretta. She was there as well. And but they have sauna. And sauna is a big thing over there. And before dinner, everybody would go sauna. And Kim and I actually opted to not sauna because I guess I'm too modest. I'm not European enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Because there's not like guy sauna and girl sauna.
No, there is. Or
okay, I thought they all did it together.
No, there's men's sauna, and at least at this event there was. I mean, maybe other places there's only one, but yeah, there was men's and women's. My thing was I had been doing scent free for the hunt, and I didn't know if the sauna. You know, where I live in Pagosa Springs, we have hot springs, and if you go, I mean, it's awesome sauna and hot springs, but you're going to smell like
sulfur
for weeks. So I kind of didn't want to do that, and then I'm a weirdo. My hair frizzes and stuff like that, and I was like, now I'm going to have to, if I sauna, I'm going to have to go and figure out how to fix my hair and
before dinner. Right.
Girl
just
stuff.
Easier not to. Yeah, the guys don't even have to think about.
So instead, Kim and I watched these gigantic squirrels they had over there, and we kind of checked out the wildlife and the terrain. And there, that cabin is actually on the lake, and there were swans out there, and so it was really cool. Just awesome ambiance. And
very cool. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's really cool though. So then the next morning you went.
Yep.
Across the border.
The next morning, we boarded up in Helsinki, flew to Kuusamo.
Okay.
The guide from Russia actually picked us up at the airport in Kuusamo, and we loaded all our stuff in there. And then from the airport, we drove into Russia. And when you're leaving Finland and headed to Russia, there's a checkpoint where you check in with Finland government before you exit the country. And then about 800 yards away, there is the Russian checkpoint. So we were given strict instructions, all of us riders, not to speak, not to talk, no laughing or smiling. Like, we had to just be as flat as we could be. And of course, being riders, I don't know if you've spent a lot of time with riders, but of course there's a lot of heckling and trying to get us to break the rules and get arrested in Russia. I don't know, but
so that would make an interesting story. This one time when I was in Russia and I got arrested for laughing.
Right. So we made it through. We had to have our passports ready. We had firearms tags showing, and this is why at the gun range, I didn't realize that day they were putting our name tags and labeling and assigning these rifles and ammunition and so forth, was because when we checked out of Finland, we had to say what we had. And then as we headed to the Russian border, there were strict rules, no photos, which is really hard for riders because we really wanted to take pictures at the border of the guards and the shack and the, all the security. But I don't know if anybody got any pictures, but I didn't. And actually maybe somebody got a picture, but riders, they have to get pictures. There may be a selfie somewhere in the world of us at the Russian border. But once we got inside there, we unloaded our guns and we had to just sit quietly and wait our turn. And besides us 4 riders, there were Philip, who is the rifle manager for Beretta. He was with us, and then 3 or 4 gentlemen from Saco came with us. So we really were in good hands. We were in good company. And then the Tatiana is who picked us up with the Lake Payavre Wilderness. And she was a great resource. I mean, if you're ever going to Russia, like, I recommend getting a guide, because just getting across the border with the gun, it took us 5 hours.
That's insane.
So each one of us had to go through, and first of all, they would scrutinize our passport. Some of us had difficulty because we had stamps going into countries we had been to, but not stamps out of those countries. And so they would question us on that, what we were there, what was our purpose, stuff like that. Then after we passed the passport part, we had to go and fill out these intensive forms with serial numbers, addresses, and everything, where we were going, all our information, which the guide did for us, which was great because I don't know Russian. And to fill out those forms, I wouldn't have no idea how to do it.
You're putting a lot of trust into somebody.
Yes, we were. Yeah.
Like a lot of trust into a stranger.
Yeah. And that's partly, if I was doing it on my own, you really have to research guides. I've been to other countries and I thought I researched guides and had my trust in them. And then in the end, I had a great hunt, great event, came home safely, but got burned financially. So as far as traveling, I really put my trust in Sako Rifles, and they're a very reputable company. So is Beretta. I knew they weren't going to let anything happen to us. So they had done all that research ahead of time. They had actually sent some of their guys to hunt with this organization before we went.
Okay.
So I trusted them. But yeah, you did have, if it wouldn't have been a reputable person, who knows what they would be writing on the forms.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Once she filled out the forms and they would call our names to go in, we had to take our whole gun case and weigh the gun case with the ammunition, scope, rifle, magazine inside the case. And then we had to take it, open it, and show them the ammunition, that the cases were full, the boxes of ammo were full. They took photos of the boxes and of the ammunition. They took photos of our magazines. They took photos of our scopes and the serial numbers, the rifle, the serial numbers. And so the whole process was just very intensive.
Very time intensive, yes. Yeah. Gosh, that's craziness.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And so then after each of us would get through one by one, the guide, she was so outstanding because she had brought these picnic coolers, and we literally, like, in the waiting area when we were done, there's a separate waiting area. And she had sandwiches and coffee and soft drinks and, so she fed us because obviously we were hungry after that long. And we all had fun visiting in there after we had passed the the examination.
Just check. What was the terrain like compared to, say, Colorado or the United States was?
Now, I've hunted up in northern Canada, like just below the Northern Territories, and I would say it's somewhat similar to that. I've had friends, other people that were on the hunt said it's similar to areas they had been in Alaska. The trees were kind of like you noticed here, like there's a lot of vegetation and timber at lower elevation, and then the higher you go, the trees become more sparse. Well, the higher you go to the Arctic Circle, the trees become more sparse. So we were pretty high up there, and there's a lot of vegetation. There was a lot of like lichen and moss and stuff covering the ground. The ground was very spongy. When we drove through the border, it was the middle of night when we were done at the border, and it was dark, but we headed out on this gravel road, and then about, I don't know, a quarter of a mile later, it turned into like a totally ruddy, bumpy, crazy road, and we drove for hours on this 2-lane Jeep road, taking our gear to the hunt. But in the night, some of that moss looked like snow. It was really cool looking because it was like so pretty. And they actually would cut that and use it to decorate the tables at dinner. It was really beautiful. But the trees were pretty, I wouldn't say thick like here. I mean, like, I know some areas I've hunted back east, like you can't even see through the trees. Yep. And you can see through in certain areas, probably 100 yards, 200 yards. But really tall timber. Actually, once we started bear hunting, the bear stand that I hunted from was probably 60 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
And the trees were taller than the stand.
So you got there at night. I'm trying to keep the timeline in my head.
It was all one day. The whole trip was one day for me.
Right? Seriously, because I'm like, did you sleep at all, like in the car? So you get over the border, and you get to the resort.
Yeah.
Right.
And then actually where we stayed was a beautiful resort. Yeah, it was a beautiful log building, which was very high end for the area, because on our way in, we actually got to see like it was really neat to me because, you know, in school you hear history and Soviet Union, you know, and Russia and all the turning of things. It's really neat for me, like I said, to sit in a cabin where Hitler had been. And, you know, I had learned about that in school. I'd read about it. And then to go, and as we're driving, you see this little village we went through was like so oppressed, and it was so back in like the 60s or 70s as far as their culture and the vehicles and everything were so old. And you just really could get the feel of the Soviet Union.
That it's not just words on a book, it's real life.
Exactly. And I didn't get to go any big cities. That village was the only one that we ever went through the whole time we were there. But it's really amazing because as Americans, we don't really realize the technology we have and how civilized we are and how advanced we are in compared to other countries and other communities. So that was awesome. But this place where we stayed was, for the area, very high end. It was a nice, super 5-star log cabin lodge. It actually had guest rooms. I had my own room, so I didn't have to share a room with one of these other guys that are a writer. You know, as a woman and married woman, I especially like I want my own space, and I actually had my own bathroom and all that. So that was really nice. The lodging was amazing. It was great. Cool. But I didn't really, the bed was comfortable, but again, we get there at 2 a.m. It was my birthday. And the guys are singing and happy birthday the whole way on this 2-lane rutted road as we're bouncing our way to the lodge. We get there at 2 a.m. and are greeted with this just beautiful dinner, outstanding dinner. I felt so bad because it was so delicious, but we were so tired, but we couldn't eat. Yeah. We apologized to the chef because we're like, the food is great, but like, I don't know what time zone I'm on, and I can't eat right now. And one of the editors and we got chosen to go first because we hadn't drank on the drive. Because, as I said, there's a lot of vodka and Jägermeister. You go to Finland or Russia, there's vodka or Jägermeister. And after having sat through the whole examination at the border, I'm not a big drinker, so I wanted to see where we were. I wanted to know where we were going, and I'm trying to see it, you know, like, I don't know if I got lost up there, if I could ever find my way out. I guarantee I probably couldn't, but maybe Naked and Afraid should drop some people in northern Russia. But the area it's kind of like, I haven't been to see the Thousand Lakes in Minnesota. I've only been there in the winter when everything's frozen. But there were lakes everywhere and water everywhere. So as far as the terrain, you're asking about that. When we actually went out hunting, there are areas where when you're walking, it's so spongy and swampy that you're just going to fall through into the water, through the moss. And I think that's why I'll tell you about moose hunting later. But when they moose hunt, they don't spot and stalk. And from Colorado, we took Carrie spot and stalk hunting.
We'll talk about Colorado.
It's a little different.
Oh my gosh, Colorado on another episode, because that's like a whole hour-long segment. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So after being in a plane from America to Finland, and then from Finland to our traveling through Russia, I had been sitting and sitting and sitting. Well, then me and another guy, we get chosen to go to separate stands to hunt bear. I requested a guide because the hunting regulations were in a PDF and I couldn't translate them. So I was like, please send me with a guide so I don't get in trouble and get stuck in Russia. Get arrested for doing something wrong. So we headed to the stand with a guide, and I got to sit again in the stand, and I was sitting a lot. So we get in the stand, and as we drove out there, I asked, the driver spoke English, and I asked him when sunrise was, and it was going to be 2.5 hours from when it was when we were driving out there. We get up in the stand, and immediately we sit down in these crickety chairs and see a bear. In the dark, in the moonlight, I can kind of see this ominous silhouette black thing lurking around out there.
Is it black bears or brown bears?
They're brown bears.
Brown bears, so they're big bears.
Yeah, this big blob. It like a big shadow is just kind of lurking around. I actually could hear it. As I said, it's swampy there, and before I saw it, I heard it sloshing, and through the water, you could hear it coming. So I knew to look, and I'm trying to look through my Swarovskis. I'm like, you saw us. They pick up a lot of light and low light. Couldn't see. And then Steiner scopes we had, and I tried to look through my scope to see if I could see, and couldn't really like make out. I knew it was a bear. But the guide is like, oh, look, and I'm like, yeah, I see it's a bear. And I'm so excited because I can't wait for sunrise so I could shoot a bear. But yeah, no bears came again that day. So we're leaving out when the driver came to pick us up, and we traded. Another editor took the stand I was in, and he got to wait after that. And the driver and the guide are like, rah, 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 and I can hear this, heated conversation going back and forth, and I'm kind of gathering that the guide was a little upset with me.
But you're not really sure why.
And I knew he was upset with me, and I wasn't quite sure why. And then both of them got very quiet. And the driver looked at me and he said, Mia, did you see a bear? And I said, oh my God, yes, I saw the bear. And he said, Mia, why did you not shoot the bear?
Do you need to get that? So they're talking heatedly, and he looks at you and he says, Mia, did you see a bear?
Yeah. So I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, I saw a bear. It was so cool. And he stopped me and he said, Mia, why did you not shoot the bear? And I kind of got quiet, and I said, well, because it was dark. And this is like, all of a sudden it's coming to me like all really fast, this rush, like, oh my God, I was supposed to shoot the bear in the dark. That's why the guide was like tapping me and saying, do you see it? Do you see it? And I was like, it was dark. And he asked me, well, didn't you bring a light? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, you're supposed to turn on the light to shoot the bear. And I'm just, and here I am, and it's kind of a whirlwind. I mean, I'm already kind of tired. We had been sitting in the stand. My behind is so sore from sitting for so long, for so many days. And I'm like, what? Like, I teach hunter ed in Colorado, and I would get arrested if I turned on my light to shoot a bear.
Yeah.
Unless the bear is eating my livestock, like, no, you do not shoot any animals at night. So yeah, come to find out, the lights that we brought, we were supposed to either turn it on, or ended up, after a lot of conversation, we decided that the next time we went out to the stand, I would have the guide turn the light on for me, because I've never spotlighted animals.
Well, sure.
So I really wasn't sure how to hold the rifle and the light at the same time. And actually, I have some tactical friends that are like, we'll take you to class to teach you. I know how to shoot my handgun with a light for self-defense, but I'd never thought of shooting a rifle. So
it's totally a foreign concept for us.
So that was new to me. So we went in, had another outstanding meal. I tried to go sleep, but again, it's daytime there at this point, and even though it would be nighttime at home, my body is just crazy on time. So I kind of didn't nap. Then went for an evening sit in the stand. And like I said, the guide and I had this plan. And as a bear was coming in at the end of our sit, and again, I'm just like so stiff and so tired of sitting. Because we spot and stalk hunt, we don't sit, and even bears, we can't bait bear here, so we spot and stalk a lot. And a bear came in like just at the last 10 minutes of when we were sitting, and then the driver of the truck came, and it scared the bear away. So no bear for me in Russia, but quite an experience, a lot of fun. And then the next day, we actually got to hunt moose.
Okay.
And as I said, that I would get to that. And I wondered why in Russia they hunt moose with dogs. And I have friends from Croatia and other places, they hunt moose with dogs as well. And being from America and fair chase hunt and stuff like that, and we hunt mountain lions with dogs. So I understand hunting with dogs. I didn't understand why you would want to hunt a moose with a dog. And until I saw their terrain there, and that you really could not spot and stalk. There's so much water. There's so much down timber. There's so too many things to climb over. You couldn't do it. And so basically what they do, they use the same GPS that we use here for our hunting dogs. They had Garmin Astros, and they track the dog. The dog will locate an animal. You can totally tell on the collars when they've bayed something. And then basically they set you up in locations that are on high ground, and the dog kind of tries to drive the moose. You go where you stand, where you think the dog is going to drive the moose. And this is why the moving target and the hunting test, because the moose may or may not come running by you. And as it's running, you have to identify whether it's a male or a female. Is it a bull or a cow? And you can only shoot bull moose. And one of the gentlemen from Beretta saw one came near him and it was a cow, so no shot. Another one, they actually had the dog had bayed the moose and just had it standing there. The dog doesn't attack the moose. It doesn't do anything like that. And the guide and one of the riders were able to kind of get close to it before it ran away because the dog was just running around it barking. But it was a cow, so no shots. So, but it was just cool. It was really cool to see a different method of hunting, because just like with hunting, it's like if you're a bow hunter, don't knock a rifle hunter, or if you're a traditional archer, don't knock someone who shoots compound. Some people are like, don't hunt with dogs, it's so unfair. I mean, just like that, there were 7 or 8 of us hunting and nobody shot a moose. Yeah.
So just because you're hunting with dogs and doesn't make it that much easier. Yeah, it
doesn't guarantee that you're going to get something. And actually, just like hunting over a bait, I probably could have got a bear, but I didn't know the whole logistics of hunting in another country. And even hunting in America, like if you go to a different state, you have to look up the rules. Our rules are a little different than other rules, So it was an amazing experience. And recently, someone asked me, what's been your favorite hunt in history? And it's like, I've been to New Zealand, I've been to Canada, I've been, different places, and Russia is my favorite, and I didn't kill a thing.
That's crazy. That's crazy. What were the temps like?
The temperatures were, it was in September. It was for my birthday. So it was fall there as well. And since it's in the northern hemisphere, we were up in the higher latitudes, and I would have to look up exactly. But when I was researching what gear to carry over there, I didn't want to have to, travel with 10 suitcases and just me trying to get through different countries and customs and stuff. And I looked up, and it was kind of parallel with Alaska. So I asked one of my friend's guides in Alaska, what are the temperatures going to be like? And actually very similar to where we hunt up at 11,000 feet in Colorado this time of year. Okay. So, it could have been 20s in the morning, could have been 80s in the day, and that is exactly what it was. I ended up I told you about the WSI base layers. I took those. I didn't take my super heavy gear, because I told you I don't use heavy gear a lot because we walk so much. And even though we were sitting in a stand, I didn't take that super duper heavy gear because I had those base layers. Sure. And I used that when I went to Minnesota to hunt geese in November, and I did have that super heavy gear because you're laying out there in the wind. But so it was not freezing cold. You'd bit chilly in the morning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you had an awful lot of fun.
It was a ton of fun. And if I could do it again, I would totally do it again. And
right?
Learn how to shoot with a light.
Right? Oh my God. So what would be your number one tip, other than start planning early? What would be your number one tip for someone who's interested in hunting in Russia?
My number one tip would be find a good guide to go with. I mean, without that guide, I would have been terrified there. Yeah. And they actually, 2 of the riders, they took across the lake on a boat to hunt another area, and they opted not to take me to that area, and I was fine with it because it was closer to a village. And as I said, it's really oppressed there, and they just didn't want to have any incident of crime or anything happen there. They would, if they would come steal your gun or something like that, they didn't want to have that on their hands. So it was, if you have a good guide, they'll know those areas, and you won't have to worry about someone dropping you off by yourself somewhere where you might be in danger, So I never felt in danger at all. And so
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like it was an amazing trip.
Yeah.
My goodness. And I'm going to attempt to link back to everything in the show notes. Yes. The show notes are going to be like this long.
You know what? I'll give you a link to one of the articles I wrote at Beretta, because there's actually links to the outfit that we hunted with.
Oh, perfect.
And so someone could research that and maybe go from there, get ideas of how to find somebody to go hunt with.
Awesome. And any of the articles that anybody else wrote, we could link them to.
Well, and I haven't read of anyone else's articles yet. Outdoor Life, the editor was there, Amaland's editor was there, and Recoil Magazine was there. And I subscribe to Outdoor Life and Amaland, but I may have missed issues since I travel a lot. I may have missed the issues with anything about that on there.
Sure.
But also, as I said, we didn't kill anything, so they may not have been able to get a story. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
With writing, there is always the aspect of the whole circle story.
Yep.
And Recoil, I know they were talking about the guide that I had. He actually was an Olympic skier. And so Rob from Recoil was interviewing him about his history and how he became a guide and, you know, training the dogs and all that. So
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is something a little different. Well, excellent. Well, tell the listeners again where they can find out more about you and your YouTube channel and everything.
Me. It's Mia Anstine, and if you just look at my name, you'll find me on almost all social media outlets. I'm not very creative with handles and stuff like that. So it's MiaAnstine. There's links on my website to all the articles and so forth, and you can find anything from my website's a hub, and you can go from there.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and telling us about your Russian bear hunt.
Thanks for having me again.
Who goes bear hunting in Russia? That's so freaking awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
I felt
seriously.
so fortunate. It was a trip of a lifetime for sure. The best birthday ever.
Right? No kidding.
And Beretta didn't even know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to find the show on iTunes. Just search for Hunt Fish Travel Podcast and hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on social media. You can find Hunt Fish Travel on Facebook, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carrie Zylka, CarrieZylka.